In this video, we're going to be talking about this kit setup right here. So this loadout is designed to be an assaulter's rig for someone who is carrying a belt-fed type weapon. Now, a couple months ago, we did a video on our main channel talking about this belt-fed AR-15 upper right here. Is called belt feds for civilians. So before we get into this kit, I'm going to talk about the build of this gun, talk about it a little bit just to give a little bit of context to what's going on with this kit setup right here. So if you've already noticed, I said the assaulter loadout. So traditionally with belt-fed type weapon systems, these are going to be mainly designed for support by fire type positions. So their main intention is to lay down a lot of fire. This kit is still trying to support that, but when an assaulter's rig, there's a little bit more considerations that need to be taken in for the kit setup, and it's a little bit difficult to set up a kit for belt fed because you have to be able to carry a lot of ammo. So that's why I wanted to just go over what we had set up right here. Now, in my time in the Marine Corps, I've been responsible for a belt fed machine gun on numerous occasions, from deployments to exercises, and I've got to play with setting up my kit a number of different ways to try and support that job as best as I could. So I carried it over to what we have here, but first, before we get into the kit, let's just go over a quick refresher of the belt-fed setup right here. So for the gun itself, we have a Fight Light upper. So this is their pro upper, so it basically comes with all of the features that you can possibly get out of the box. We have a 12.5-inch barrel with the Huxwork suppressor, and we also have a 16-inch barrel that's non-suppressed. The setup for light and laser, we just have a Surefire light with a maul. The reason for this is we basically just want a lot of material between our hand and the barrel because this gun gets very hot. This is a belt-fed upper receiver that fits on a standard AR-15 lower. There's a proprietary buffer system that works with it to optimize it. But for the lower here, we actually have a lower designed for taking belt-fed magazines. So this is essentially a belt-fed civilian legal forced reset gun. So the cool thing about this is not a machine gun. This doesn't even require any sort of NFA paperwork. This has no tax stamps. So I mean, this one in particular is SBR because we have that 12.5-inch barrel, but you can buy this, have the 16-inch barrel with a forced reset trigger, and you have belt-fed capability. And you don't even have to do a tax stamp, which is pretty cool. So we do have a forced reset trigger in there. So we have semi option, and then we also have full forced reset option. What's really cool about this, if you didn't know about these guys, which they've been around for a while, and I'm sure most of you guys are aware of them, but you can get forced reset triggers, put them in any standard AR-15. You can put extended or drum magazines in those guns, and you do have increased capability. But what's really cool about this, aside from the fact that it's obviously a belt fed, is that the barrels are hot swappable. So that's a big need for running a weapon system that's designed to maintain high rates of fire for a long period of time. So the civilian IAR trend, we talked about it in that video a little bit, is just a step behind something like this because we can change barrels. That's going to allow us to maintain rate of fire for a longer period of time. Now, this is a closed bolt weapon system. Real machine guns are open bolt guns, so that does cause some heat issues, but if you go check out our main YouTube video, we kind of discussed that and even tested that compared directly to an M249. So that's a quick refresher of what this gun is, how it's set up. We do have an Accutech bipod on here, very beefy, very strong, and it's actually attached to a light, M-LOK light bar to get it out a little bit further. But that's basically it for this gun. So let's get into the kit. Now, the primary purpose of this loadout is to be able to provide my team with a lot of firepower. So that means my primary purpose for this loadout is ensuring that that gun stays up and I am able to keep it up for a long period of time. So that means I need the tools to keep it up, I need the lubrication to keep it up, the cleaning, all of that stuff, plus I need a lot of ammunition. So if that's my primary role on the team, or my primary purpose is ensuring that gun stays up and running in the most reliable way possible, then my kit is going to need to be dictated by that. So I'm going to start with basically going from waist up because that's going to kind of go from least interesting to most interesting. So for me, even if I'm not doing a belt fed setup, I generally like to stay away from belts. So I like to have my pistol attached directly to my hip, and then I usually just like to wear a fanny pack. So the primary reason for this is I like to be comfortable in vehicles. A lot of the operations, almost every operation I did, we inserted via sitting down in something, whether it's a vehicle or a helicopter, and having a pistol belt just makes that part of the operation very uncomfortable and sometimes even impossible if we had to be secured to whatever we're riding in. So I have carried that over. I want to be able to sit in a vehicle, and that is why I do a fanny pack and a pistol setup like this. Now, if you're doing a greenside type operation, so that means you're going to be, basically what I mean by that is patrolling through the woods. And the woods like to have a lot of fingers, so generally you're going to see guys who have closed bolt weapons not carry sidearms or pistols just because it's not all that necessary. It's just a redundant piece of equipment. And like I said, trees like to have sticky fingers, and you just run more risk of having this guy stolen. However, in a direct assaulter type setup, we definitely want a backup weapon. And given the fact that we do have a simulated machine gun is what I'm going to call it, someone who is carrying a belt fed always should carry a backup weapon, because these do have a higher malfunction rate comparatively just to like a direct impingement carbine. So that's the pistol setup. In the fanny pack, just med kit, and then we have our distractionary devices, and this is a dump pouch. So I actually wore this setup on deployment. I had a different fanny pack, but I had this Eagle Industries Molly adapter so it attaches to a belt. I was able to carry, I carried frag grenades, but here we just have flashbangs, we have a smoke, and then we have a multi-tool. So this is going to be one of the first important pieces of equipment that we have in this kit is a multi-tool. I know a lot of us carry multi-tools regardless of what our role is on our kit, but again, these things have a higher malfunction rate than typical guns, and we're going to need the tools on us to make sure that we can fix whatever problem arises. Now, given the fact that that is a closed bolt gun, the problems that can happen to that are going to be much less severe than a lot of problems that open bolt guns run into. So we don't need a lot of the crazy tools, but just want to mention that as we go forward, because you're going to see a couple of other tools on this kit. Now with the plate carrier, what we have here is the TREX AC 1.5. Now I would recommend going with a slicker carrier, but I would actually recommend going with a carrier that has a structured cummerbund just to help with some of the weight that you're going to be carrying. So this kit setup is going to be a little bit heavier comparatively to normal plate carrier setups, and it's also going to be a little bit more unbalanced. So with the slick carrier design, let's hit that real quick. I always want to be able to carry a backpack, and especially when I'm in a supporting role like this belt fed here, I'm going to need a lot more stuff than what I can just carry on my kit. So I'm going to need to be able to carry a bag of some kind. Now, considering that this is an assaulter loadout, I'm not looking to sustain operations for more than half a day, maybe up to a day. So a small backpack like this can work, but this kit does give me the flexibility to run a bigger backpack if I need to. So getting into the plate carrier first, we're going to talk about the backpack last. We have up front a lot of ammunition. So generally, when I was carrying a 249, I wanted to be able to carry 1,000 rounds of ammunition on me. That sounds like a lot, but if you've ever shot one of these, that ammo goes really quick, and especially if you find yourself in a support by fire position of some kind. And even though we have a direct action type loadout here, your purpose with that gun, even clearing a house or doing something more dynamic, is there so you can provide a support by fire type position. So a position that's able to throw a lot of rounds down, do it very quickly, and do it for a long period of time. So we're going to need to carry a lot of ammunition, is all I'm trying to say. But with this setup here, the only downside to this, and the purpose of this setup here is to be able to get to that ammunition quickly. The only downside of this is going into prone is going to be very difficult because we have a lot of stuff going on in the front. That's going to be the downside here. I understand that. When I was carrying 249s on the teams, I still kept a completely slick carrier, and I was running stuff basically all on my sides. That's one of the reasons why I recommend structured cummerbunds, because I can run all my ammunition on the side and then run all my tools up front instead. So that's one thing I could do different here, but we're running what we got. So up front here, we essentially have two speed reload options here. So I'm going to set this up so you guys can see it on the top-down camera. But up front here, let's talk about the ammunition first, and we'll talk about some of the other supporting equipment that we got going on. Now, I'm not going to get into the weeds of all of the other normal stuff that you see on kit, like comms and water and note-taking gear. We're just going to talk about the stuff that's really pertinent to this belt fed here. So up front, like I said, two speed reload options. So we have a D60 here. Now, this is our true first access speed reload. So if I run out of ammunition with the 200 round mag out of my gun and I need to reload quickly, this is what I'm going to be going to. So I have this set up basically just as an emergency reload. Right next to it, we have a Shaw Concepts pouch that holds another 100 round magazine for the gun. So this is going to be my first reload option here. And this also, as soon as I reload to this, a lot of that bulk on the front of my kit goes away. So going into prone is going to be a lot easier. And then additionally, on the dangler here, I have another 100 round magazine. So far, we have our 200 rounds in the gun, 100 rounds right here, 100 rounds right here, and 60 rounds right here. So we're up to 460 rounds just with what's on the gun and what's on the front of our body, which is a pretty good start. Now, lastly, with ammunition on this kit, Since the gun can run magazines, and magazines are generally faster reloads than manipulating a belt-fed magazine, I have 2 more just aluminum magazines on the side here. So these can be reloaded pretty quickly, but they're also just here as an absolute emergency. So here, now we're up to 520 rounds of ammunition between the gun and what's on our kit. So the first tool per se that we're going to talk about is actually lubrication. So this is going to be a very important thing to have with these guns because they're going to get dirty, they're going to run very hot, they're going to need constant oil if you want to keep them running reliably. So in the case of this setup here, I actually have lubrication in 2 different places on my kit, and that is because these like to break, sometimes they like to leak, and if I really need to oil my gun and my only source of lubrication fails, that can be a really bad time. So I have basically a quick access one here in the dangler pouch. This is going to be a good oil for the gun, and I'm also going to have basically a backup solution here on the front of the kit. So both of these I can get to pretty quickly. The one on top of my kit's going to be a little bit more protected, and sometimes what I like to do, I generally just like to run CLP, but in the case of this setup here, I have 2 different types of oil just in case one is not working. I can try another one, just a little bit of redundancy there, but just to play it safe, I just recommend running CLP for specifically that gun there. But just have 2 different there just to have 2 different options basically. So the next tool that we have is we have this giant, basically flathead screwdriver. So choke ups with these types of guns are generally pretty nasty. They're generally really hot, the gun's running really fast, and they're really dirty, so having to clear malfunctions generally just a little bit more difficult. So I have basically a big crowbar that's also a flathead. I can get in there, pry some stuff out, but one of the benefits to having a closed bolt gun, aside from obviously all of the downsides to it, is that if a casing gets stuck in the barrel, I do have punches, which we'll talk about here in a second, I can get that out, but I can just change the barrel. So sometimes open bolt malfunctions happen within the receiver. It's a lot more of a process to get in there and clean that stuff out, but with the closed bolt design, sometimes the malfunction just gets shoved in the barrel and I can swap out the barrel. But that's what this is for, is to use it for a number of different things, pry some stuff out, especially if the gun's hot. I don't want to have to be touching things if I can avoid it. So that's what we got going on there, and it's just kind of shoved behind the Velcro. And I have this chem light holder here because I can run a sling keeper or something similar around the handle just to keep it from coming out if I so desire. Now, the next thing that is fairly unique to the kit here, and I actually don't have the actual piece of equipment that I wanted to demonstrate. I lost it, so I do apologize. So I do have something that's just representing it. So we definitely want gloves. We always want to be wearing gloves when we're running these guns. They get hot, they need to be manhandled, and they're going to bruise up and cut up our little girly hands. So we have gloves, but what this is representing, this is not the actual glove that I'm talking about, is a welder's glove or a fast rope glove. So something that is very thick but still has a little bit of dexterity, and that is for changing the barrel on that gun and also just handling the swapped barrel. So if you don't have that, what I recommend doing is having your pair of gloves that are a little bit bigger, a little bit thicker, and then having a base layer pair of gloves that are very thin. So you basically just have 2 layers of glove. That can do a pretty good job, especially if you are running this gun correctly. You're not letting it get to that point where you need a thick glove. You'll be totally fine there. So again, this is just representing a very thick glove. It's obviously not the case there. So other than that, for the kit, this kit is pretty slick. We just have some medical, we have some note-taking gear, we have some tape to tape things up. This is, again, more of a direct action type setup, so we do have chem lights in case we need to mark something, but it's probably not anything that someone in this role should be doing, but you should have them just in case. And then we also have our 1 spare magazine for our pistol. This is a 24 rounder. So that's what we got going on with the plate carrier. So it's a pretty simple setup, but again, the idea with this is being able to get to a lot of ammunition quickly and excuse me, and be able to have the tools that we need on us immediately accessible to keep that gun running. Now, don't forget, we have our plate carrier, we have our backpack, we have what's going on in our waist. We also have pockets on our pants, so we can have additional multi-tools. We can have our flashlights in our pockets. That's generally where I like to keep stuff. So these multi-tools that are on the kit are going to be pretty specific to that gun. So if I have a generic multi-tool or generic flashlight like this Leatherman Skeletal or an EDC flashlight, or even another med kit, that's going to be in my pockets. So if you're noticing like, hey, you don't have some of the basic equipment like spare batteries, for example, well, that's going to be in my bag or in my pockets, and that's totally fine. So that's the plate carrier setup. Pretty simple. Now moving on to the backpack. Now like I said, this is designed to be set up for a shorter duration of operation, so we're not going out for multiple days at a time, just half a day to a day possibly. So the backpack I have here is pretty small. Now what you're going to notice is that 1,000 round goal that we set is not going to be met with this kit. It's going to be pretty close. But one way that I was able to reach that 1,000 rounds was using an Alice frame ruck, even for this type of setup. So I use that for a couple of reasons. One, I was a radio operator and sometimes I carried a machine gun. So having a large radio like a 117 Fox, which is an older radio, kind of aged myself a little bit there, needs a good frame because they're very heavy. Now additionally what we would do is I was actually borrowing a friend's ruck, so I don't have it because it wasn't mine, but the frame had something welded on the bottom of it to hold 7.62 ammo cans in it. So I can have full 7.62 ammo cans full of 5.56 belts at the bottom of the ruck, which provided a lot more ammunition. I don't have that right here. What we have here is just an Eagle Yote, which also does work pretty well. This was the other bag that I was using if I was carrying a smaller radio like a 117 Golf. All that to say, this bag's a little small, but it can still carry a good amount of stuff. So in here, we're gonna have our batteries, we're gonna have our one MRE if we need it, we're gonna have our water and our camelback. So a lot of the essential equipment or even other additional mission essential equipment that you need to carry can go in this bag. But again, the primary purpose of this, keep this gun up and running, be able to get to the stuff to keep that job going, have that stuff easily accessible. So in the bag here, what I got going on, so in this first pouch is going to be basically the quickest reload. We have another 100 rounds of ammunition, and then we also have an additional smoke grenade at the bottom. This is exactly how I would set up the Eagle Yote bag in real life. If I didn't have extra ammunition here, I would just have additional explosives like frag grenades. So this was generally my explosive pouch, but considering we don't have frag grenades, we have the 100 rounds of ammunition. And if I was needing to carry a lot of ammo for that guy or even just additional magazines, I can put them in there, which I have before, like I said. Now onto the side here, or actually I'll do this side first. We have another 100 rounds of ammo. So now we're up to that 720 rounds of ammo in the gun. So another 100 round magazine here. This guy is a really snug fit. So if this was real life, I'd probably strip 20 rounds out of that belt just to be able to get it in and out a little bit easier. But it's just another source of ammunition there. And then on the side here, I have 3 more magazines. So we're up to 810 rounds. So with this Assaulter's loadout, we have 810 rounds of 5.56 for the belt fed, and then we only have like 30 rounds of 9mm. So that's a good amount of ammo. And if you needed to carry more, this bag has obviously got some space to carry more if you need it, but that's what we got set up here. Now for the rest of the unique equipment for this, all we have here is this bag that's kind of inside this bag, and that is the barrel bag actually. So this is, I believe, an N249 barrel bag. So the purpose for this, one, it won't melt when you put a hot barrel in there, and obviously it carries at least one. So in this case, I'd probably only carry 1 spare barrel, but you could obviously put multiple barrels in here. But the idea here is as soon as I get to a position, whether that's set up on a window, set up on a tree, even down in the prone, we're supporting a direct action type operation. This backpack comes off, is set down next to me. I'm trying to reload primarily from this so I can preserve my speed reload pouches if I can, but I also have quick access to this barrel. Now, if I swap barrels and I have all this gear kind of yard sale, so I have all this kit on, I have the machine gun set up, I have this bag next to me, this bag is out ready to take a barrel swap. This can take a little bit of time to pack up and move, so you're gonna have to be able to do that quickly. So what we have with this bag here is we do have a strap for it that we can attach. We do have a shoulder strap here. So if we had to pack up and go really quickly, I can throw this bag on, roll this up real quick, buckle it up, and throw it on. It'd be a little awkward, but I wouldn't be leaving any gear behind. So, but all I have to say is this bag's a little big for the type of barrels that we have here. Again, this is from a actual military machine gun. Yeah, it's a 249. It's a 249 bag. So you can replicate this to be something smaller, a little bit more efficient, a little bit more specific to this setup. But this is what we got. So that's basically it for the unique equipment. Now, other than that, the only other stuff that's specific to that gun in this bag is going to be a complete cleaning kit. So I also have some barrel rod punches, so in case something does get stuck in a barrel, my primary way to clear that, I'm just going to swap the barrel, get another barrel in the gun, so the gun's up and ready, and then I can punch the barrel, get it ready to go. But Other than that, that's really it. So now hopefully this was interesting. I think kit setups like this that are designed to support, you know, kind of unconventional weapon systems, and I say that in kind of civilian terms because we're so used to just running standard carbines and pistols, but supporting things like belt fed, supporting things like designated marksman rifles, your kit has to look a little bit different, especially if you're trying to lug a big gun into a direct action type role. Your kit's going to have to look a little unique. So hopefully this was interesting. But that should about wrap up this video. Now I did set up this kit to kind of replicate the way my kit was set up when I carried a machine gun on the teams when we were doing direct action stuff, mainly during training exercises. So if any of you guys were actual machine gunners and you have a better way to set up your kit to support a role that this kit is set up to try and support, drop it in the comments. Let us know how we can do this better. But if you guys have any questions regarding any of this kit, even questions about that gun, don't forget to check out the main channel YouTube video that we did a couple months ago over that gun, but you can also shoot us an email at team@t.rexarms.com. We're always happy to help and answer questions. But I appreciate you guys' time, and we'll catch you guys next time.